And now,
it's 10 a.m.
let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Thank you for making us a part of your day. It is a Jazz Ticket Tuesday, by the way. That is brought to you by Utah Community Credit Union. Learn and earn, the app paying your family to learn about money. UCCU, love where you bank. Little tease, if you want to see the return of Quinn Snyder, stay tuned to the show.
Okay.
Because we're giving away tickets, and it's brought to you by UCCU. We have a busy day on the show today, Ben. Lots of basketball to talk about, of course. We're going to check in with Jeremiah Jensen coming up at 11:30. We're doing a really cool thing with the Utah Food Bank. We've talked about it for a couple of weeks now, so we're going to have some folks around to talk about that, how you can do some good for an amazing organization. We're going to talk about that. And we may also, and I'm knocking on for Micah or whatever this is. Maybe,
yeah, what is this?
Maybe Al Jefferson.
Yeah, we'll see.
He was supposed to come on with David and Pat, and I don't know what's going on, but he maybe got some time zones confused, I'm sure, but I think he's in town, so that's probably not it.
Just like his game, he moves at his own pace. Just like when he was on the floor, you could not speed Al Jefferson up. So, yeah, maybe we'll talk to Big Al.
You know, Al was an interesting, like, we focus on roster building a lot right now with where the Jazz are, right? And the Darren Williams, Carlos Boozer era, how long it would last, how it would keep going. Would it keep going? Would it be a rebuild? I mean, remember, this is still at the tail end of Jerry Sloan's career, right? And so where was it going? Moving Darren Williams was not really, I mean, I don't know if people understand how sudden that was, because it was not really on anybody's radar, really, that he would move. And Carlos Boozer, that era ended, and he wasn't really a popular player by the time it came to an end, because he had opted into the last year of his deal. Everybody thought that he wouldn't do that and he would have been gone a year earlier. And it probably should have been celebratory that he was back for a year, but it wasn't. And then he left. And when he left, it was actually a sign and trade.
Yes.
Ben, that created a trade exception
right
for somebody in Boozer's salary slot. And man, that was a good gesture, because the Jazz then had the option to try and keep it going, and they make the move for Al Jefferson, who at least, I don't know, Ben, at the time was 90% of booze, 85% of booze.
Yeah,
He was a little younger.
He was just such a unique player. He was a little bit even at his stage in the NBA, he was a little bit old school.
Yes,
which
yeah,
we were still had back to the basket guys. Like every team still, like, you know, Enes Kanter and Derek Favors weren't stepping out and shooting threes.
But he was playing for Jerry too. I mean, keep that in mind. I mean, this was the power forward in Jerry's system.
But even then, he wasn't like a pick and roll guy. He was I'm going to park on the elbow, and you're going to give me the ball.
And I'm going to go to work.
I'm so big, and I'm so strong, and I have really good feet and great touch that I'm going to really kill you. And it's actually funny. I was weirdly thinking about this last night because I saw the announcement that Al was going to be here along with Ronnie Price and Trevor Booker to celebrate Decades Night, which is why they're here tonight. It's the final Decades Night for the Jazz as they celebrate their 50th anniversary. Like, had Al been a more prolific passer, like, he actually would have been somewhat modern all of a sudden in today's game. Now, Jokic doesn't catch the ball on the block a whole lot. But late in games, when they're saying, okay, no more nonsense, we got to get buckets, he either brings the ball up the court or they dump it to him in the post. And he is one of the few true back-to-the-basket guys. But once he gets you to 8 feet, it's impossible to stop him. And Al Jefferson had a little bit of that. Once you got him to 8 feet, you were in real trouble. And if he had been a better passer, he honestly kind of could have translated to today's era more than kind of the dinosaur style of game I think he gets attributed.
He was already a high-usage player who never passed, which is really funny because usage actually calculates passing into it. If he actually could pass, his usage would have been at like 40.
Yeah, right.
But you know what? The reboot with Al didn't work, and it wasn't his fault it didn't work.
No, everything fell apart around him.
There were some other things that went south. Now, the great sin with Al was not moving him in the final year of his deal.
Yep.
If they weren't going to retain him. You know, they made the mistake the same year with Al and Paul, and I still to this day don't know why they did that.
Was it a point where they weren't maximizing what the Jazz do now, which is they just kind of let assets go and turn into nothing?
But it's not like that was some foreign concept then.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't like there is a modern style of running teams. There are some things differently, like you mentioned, the trade exception that never gets used anymore, and they used to be a little bit more popular. But yeah, it's a funny decision-making process that actually probably set the Jazz back a couple of years.
But flipping guys of value because you're on a team that's going nowhere,
right,
is not a new concept.
And they were a little bit flush with assets because they had gotten a bunch for Donovan Mitchell, or Darren Williams, excuse me.
Well, and that's, yes.
But even then, Nick, maximize your assets then.
And they had the next generation on the team.
Yeah, they blew it. That was a setback.
And Favors were on the team.
That was a mistake.
That didn't make sense. And I still have never heard a good explanation for that. The only explanation I've ever heard is Dennis wanted to give Ty a fair shake, which I guess.
Did he?
But is that
what happened? Is
that the really reason? If that is the reason, then I don't agree with that reasoning.
No.
But I never bought that was really. I don't know what the reason is. That made no sense. And remember that Ty ended up playing Ennis and Favors basically over those guys in the playoffs against the Spurs, only to get swept out and losing badly.
It was a bizarre...
It's a bizarre time, man.
Bizarre era of Jazz basketball.
And to let a coach go into the last year of his deal knowing you're going to let him go seems a little cruel to me, but whatever.
It was arguably the most, what I would consider dark ages of Jazz basketball in the last 20 years.
Well, they made the mistake of signing Ty Corbin to a 3-year deal to begin with.
Yep.
But that mistake, I think is a little bit forgivable just given the circumstance and the suddenness of it all.
And that it was foreign territory for the Jazz.
Well, it was Jerry's guy.
Yeah.
And they were I don't think begging is ever an appropriate word, I suppose, but they really wanted Jerry to stay and coach out the year.
Correct. And they wanted continuity because you had a star in Darren Williams. And I think it's easy to forget how good Darren Williams was at that point.
But that not making Ty the interim coach and giving Ty a 3-year deal was tough. That was a mistake. But I don't know why I don't know why they didn't move off them at the trade deadline that year or the year before, honestly. Because when you trade Darren Williams, as much as I know you love Devin Harris, that was the beginning of that's when the rebuild had to happen.
Yeah, and they even flipped that for Marvin Williams, and they kind of kept figuring out how to extend assets, and they were doing some of that there. But it was a weird era, and then to bring this full circle, credit to Al Jefferson, who remained extremely consistent, did not complain about his role.
Oh man, he was an attitude guy. I mean, he was a rock.
Yeah.
He was always like, I don't know if he was ever a go-to interview, but he would always speak his mind. I mean, he would tell you what he thought. He's just not a performance kind of guy. I mean, he wasn't, like Colin Sexton is energy level max, which makes him an interesting interview. Jordan Clarkson's got a little performance to him, obviously. Look at, his dress and fashion that I know you follow and all that. But there wasn't really that of Al. He was a very normal person.
Absolutely. And
I thought that was my takeaway.
No, I think you're totally right. He was not into celebrity. He was not into that aspect of the NBA.
He was just a guy.
He was just a basketball player and handled his job very well. And I think was fine here, was good here, and then went on to have a great year in Charlotte. His very next year, he made All-NBA third team. Never made an All-Star team, but a very consistent player throughout his career. So it'd be fun to talk to him.
If we get the pleasure. But apparently he will be there on the broadcast tonight. We've talked about this, Ben. I think the Jazz have done a really good job with their Decades nights. I think it's been fun. I haven't had a chance to watch the alt cast. I've just I'm working obviously. So, but I've read good things. I've liked the players they've brought back. The vibe in the arena for the Decades has been really cool.
The musical performances they've done, again, I know at halftime you're working, but they've been fun. They've done a good job.
I think so too. I mean, I think the 50-year anniversary and what they've done for it has been really successful and appropriate.
Yeah, on a year that's not been all that noteworthy, they did a good job.
Like the 2010s players they're bringing back, great. Al Jefferson, perfect. Okay,
sure.
Trevor Booker, absolute fan favorite.
Fan favorite, big time.
Ronnie Price, local ties.
Amazing. Ronnie Price played 10 years in the NBA.
It's not. He was such an incredible athlete, and he was so good at UVU. It's not a. Ronnie Price was Damian Lillard kind of before Damian Lillard. Does that he didn't have the
not style of play, but
actually kind of a little bit in college, but he led the nation in scoring at UVU, and that was right after UVU became a university. I mean,
yeah,
it was pretty crazy that he was dominating like that. With Dick Hunsaker as a coach too, who doesn't necessarily coach to that attribute or whatever.
Then totally changed who he was in the NBA.
But then to go to the NBA
and became a defensive-minded guy who was the last player on your roster, but brought energy and averaged 4 points a game. To completely switch it up. And
I mean, he hardly played.
Yeah, he hardly played.
But he was straight electricity when he got into the game.
Yep, he was.
I actually don't know. You say he changed his game in the pros. I'd have to think about that a little bit more.
Well, if he was leading the league in scoring or leading the nation in scoring and was not a scorer in the NBA at all.
Well, he was. He just only played 3 minutes a game.
Couldn't shoot a lick.
So, but was kind of that story to go from local to NBA success from a smaller university. I mean, it's here in Utah. It's like if Harold Arsenault would have had a pro career. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think it's cool anyway. And he was always a go-to interview because anytime Ronnie did anything, you interviewed him after the game because he was a really great interview. But that's how you know he didn't play a ton.
And still works here locally, right? He's the director of player personnel for UVU or whatever that role is. Kind of oversees everything.
That's an awesome role for him. I didn't know he was doing that.
I believe so. Yep.
That's a great role for him.
Yeah, absolutely. He can sell the school, talk about his long career, convince players to come, show how it helped him on and off the floor. Yeah.
Been here in this community forever now.
Yep.
I ran into him at Lakai once, of all places.
Is that place still open?
When he was playing for the Jazz. What?
Is Lakai still open?
I don't know.
I haven't heard anyone talk about it in a long time. Other than I used to go there sometimes. Not me, I'm saying other people. That was a thing.
I was at a wedding, of course.
Yeah. It was for dances or weddings.
That was a lovely place to get. One of the weddings I did was at Lakai. I guess that was like 7 or 8 years ago.
One of your weddings? How many have you had?
That I
officiated?
Officiated.
Okay.
I've only had one wedding.
Okay.
Thank goodness. What a stressful day. Such a stressful day.
Yeah.
And somehow so I don't really get nervous. That's not really a thing that I encounter a lot or have encountered a lot in my life. I was so nervous on my wedding day.
Really?
So nervous.
Oh, yeah, you don't get that. I've never seen you nervous before.
It's not really a thing. Do you get nervous a lot, Sarah? Is nervousness something you deal with?
When I played soccer before every game, I'd get really nervous.
Did you vomit?
No. But like my stomach would like be uneasy,
Yeah.
I guess. But no, I'd never
Yeah.
threw up or anything. But
That's
yeah,
a very common thing.
I would get nervous before like big shows. Sometimes that I was working, I would get a little nervous. But once I like get in the groove, it like goes away.
Yeah.
big shows like at the NFL or what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
'Cause
Or
this is not here.
Hey,
here.
hey.
or like interviews, like big interviews. When I've had them, I would get a little nervous. But
What did you do at the NFL? I don't know what you did at the NFL. I know you worked for the NFL, and it's always been a little hairy what you actually did.
I was loose. The loose term was a production assistant.
Okay.
But I was basically the middleman between the editor and the producer, and making sure that like
Everything was running.
everything was running right, the right highlights were in the right place.
Man, that sounds like being in the middle of two high-strung people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like
and
working
then
here. It's like working with you and
for
me.
live games, I was the one helping put together the like halftime highlights
Okay.
and scripting like the shot sheet for the hosts.
Sarah's a really big deal.
That is a big deal. Yeah. I didn't know that's what you
It
did.
was like very stressful.
Yeah, I
It was
bet.
not the most enjoyable thing.
No, that sounds stressful. That sounds like really like the whole job is stress. They should put that at the top of the description, right? You're going to be stressed the whole time. you think you're going to get a half an hour for lunch? Well, you're going to be stressed then too. Oh, that's
It's
cool
true.
though. What a cool job.
They did give us free food though.
That's why you go.
It's the least.
That's why you're a
they
media
can do.
member.
They should give you blood pressure medication.
That's why we
too.
all do this. Free food.
Oh, that's so not true.
It's a draw for some people. There are some people who I'm convinced if the Jazz didn't have free dinner would never cover a game. Or, quote unquote, cover a game. Well-
Give us a clue.
No.
What do you mean no?
No. I just think a lot of people show up because there's free food. It's a free dinner.
It is that. It is that.
And I think that's the bar some people need to show up.
Man, I tell you what, having a J Dogs right across from the studio is so tempting. Every game.
Yeah.
You like the J Dog,
Yeah, of course. Who doesn't?
but like the hot dog itself is the world's most perfect food. But the J Dog, they do it particularly well. And to have here's how you know advertising works. So I walk out of the studio and that big sign punches me right in the face and it's like, it would be good tonight.
They also have a very lush condiments bar right outside. That always
such
looks
a
good. I'm like, wow.
It's such a, hey, that's an advertising tool right there too. Like, look at what I could put on my hot dog.
Right, exactly. I see the freshness, and that's free. Those add-ons are all free.
It's like I could use all of that. That's tough.
Anyways.
That's tough to walk by. It's hard for me sometimes.
Hey, speaking of which, if we talk to Al tonight, he started his career with the Celtics.
And then Minnesota, right?
He was in the KG trade.
Kevin Garnett trade.
He
Yeah.
was kind of the crux of the KG trade because he had started to break out in Boston, was still young, and was actually very good in Minnesota on some not very good teams. And then, the Jazz brought him in.
And he had he had a really good career. Good for him.
Yep.
Man, that era of the Jazz was interesting because that was during the transition from Kevin O'Connor to Dennis Lindsey. I don't know if people, longtime listeners of the station, will remember when David James basically reported that Kevin O'Connor had retired, and then there was this huge pushback that he hadn't retired, but Dennis Lindsey was. I mean, I still don't think Kevin O'Connor has officially retired.
Yeah, right. No, I think he's still an analyst for the Jazz. Like, he still lives in, like, Charlotte or somewhere, ironically, where Al went.
I think it's North Carolina. I'm not sure if it's Charlotte.
Whatever,
but-
the Carolinas.
Yeah.
And probably takes in a couple of games in ACC country, and we'll call it and be like, he's good. This guy could play. He's got his tough accent. He's kind of a tough guy.
Oh, he's got to be in his
Late 70s. Mid-70s at least, yeah.
mid-70s at least.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think he ever actually retired.
But yeah, it was DJ's like, yeah, he's living in North Carolina. He's not in. How dare you imply that? And you know what? They transitioned to Dennis, and Dennis was really good at that job for 10 years. But to get back to the point, not moving Al and not moving Paul at the time made zero sense to me, and still makes zero sense. And I would argue did set that particular rebuild back a little bit.
I do think also, to bring this to modern era, it's a I know Jazz fans don't love the rebuild right now. I know a lot of fans have questions about what's going on. If you only became fans of the Jazz during the Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell era, the context that you need is that this rebuild has so much more direction and makes so much more sense than the last one did.
So far.
Which really had these weird multiple timelines of Al Jefferson and Paul Millsap, like not figuring out what's going to be the future of the franchise, and then Enes Kanter and Derek Favors. And then you're right, just like letting assets walk for nothing. It would be like almost exactly, but honestly, Al Jefferson and Paul Millsap were both significantly better than these players. If the Jazz had just let Kelly Olynyk and Simone Fontecchio play out the year on a team that was destined to win 37 games and let them walk for nothing, only to hear after, oh yeah, the Jazz could have gotten a first-round pick for those guys. And you're like, what? You just let them leave? You could have gotten a first-round pick and you just let them go sign elsewhere to play an extra 30 games after the trade deadline and not make the playoffs? Like, what are you talking about? Why wouldn't they make that trade? That's what happened. That's literally exactly what happened.
Exactly.
Because the story
happened.
came out that summer was that, oh yeah, the Jazz had first-round picks for those guys. I'm like, what?
Wait, what?
Well, okay. Get the picks. You need picks. And they were like, no.
No, we don't.
And never really had an explanation of why not.
It was a weird time, Ben.
So I know Jazz fans were frustrated about the Kelly Olynyk and Simone Fontecchio trade. I should recognize that not everyone has the context and the historical, reference points that you have because you were literally working in the market at the time. I was living in Utah at the time and following it. It makes a lot of sense.
I can't remember if Zanuck was here. We'd have to look back to see.
I think he started in 2014. I think he may have started that offseason.
Because that would be an interesting question to ask him, actually. But I'm not sure if he was here yet.
He started that offseason.
We'll have to, yeah. All right, Ben, we talked about this a little bit earlier on in the show. We are very excited to get the word out about a really, really great event. Joining us now, she is the president and CEO of the Utah Food Bank. Translation, Ben. She does a lot of good. She does a lot of good for a lot of folks. Jeanette Bott with us here on Jake and Ben. Jeanette, we're so happy to have you on the show. We're so excited about this event coming up. Thank you very much.
Well, and thank you. And excitement is a good word to put around this type of event.
So, Jeanette, how can our listeners help? Can you tell us a little bit about it and then how they can help?
So it's a really easy process. We are asking folks who are willing to donate food to have a bag or a box prepared and put on their front porch or by their front door by 9 a.m. this Saturday. That'll be picked up by volunteers and distributed throughout the state to help those who are fighting with issues of hunger. If for some reason you can't do the food donation, you certainly can do a monetary donation. And the door hanger coming to your house this week gives you all sorts of instructions that you can follow to make this very easy process.
And I know this seems simple, but it's always worth mentioning, don't leave out the lunch meat in a pie. I mean, it needs to be food that can be used, canned food and food that can be preserved.
Well, we'll refer to those as non-perishables.
There we go. That's what I'm looking for.
So we are asking for those non-perishables. We're asking that you don't include anything in a glass jar. We want to be sure that it's healthy and nutritious and even kid-friendly. So box meals like mac and cheese or hamburger helper, things that kids can fix. But most importantly, if it's something that your family enjoys, donate those items because another family will enjoy them as well.
Non-perishables and no glass items, right?
Exactly. And things that are high in protein. Let's go for tuna and canned chicken and beef stew.
Now, what about the good folks out there, and there are a lot of them, who might want to volunteer, Jeanette, and help out?
We need lots of help on this day, and it's a special day, and people are utilizing the Just Serve platform. If they were to go to that platform, or the other option is to even check with the Utah Food Bank and see if folks are needed in our distribution areas. And some locations around the state are using local pantries who are open. So if there is a pantry in your community, you can check with them as well. So there are a lot of options for volunteer time.
And listen, there is someone out there, Jeanette, for example, the food bank has been there for somebody very close to me at their time in need. I think people would be surprised just how many people are hungry out there and how many people that you help.
It's amazing that in this day and age that hunger and these issues are so prevalent, but they're only getting worse. Right now, about 13% of the population of the state of Utah don't know where their next meal is coming from, and 1 in 10 of those are children. So this is something we have to be prepared for. We need to be able to help those folks, but we can't do it alone. There has to be collaboration and partnership, and we all need to jump in this and make sure that we all fight hunger in Utah.
All right, so it's going to be on Saturday, March 16th. It's the third Feed Utah Food Drive. And speaking of those partnerships, you guys are partnering with Associated Foods, Just Serve, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And you're going to collect food and do a lot of good. Jeanette, thank you so very much for being on the show. We're so excited to be on board to get the word out. And I know our listeners are excited to help.
You know, and one last quick thing, if someone doesn't pick up your food and you have a Macy's store or a Lynn store close to you, take it there for the donation.
Well, that's easy, too. I've got one right down the road, in fact. Jeanette, thank you very much.
Thanks,
we
Jeanette.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, that is Jeanette Bott, Utah Food Bank President and CEO. So help out.
And, you know, if you don't have a front door, you know, some people live in apartments or whatever.
Right,
it's not
right.
easy. You can always donate cash. Every $1 can be stretched to over $8 the food bank. They can really make that money go a long way. So $5 is like $40. Really easy if you could do it.
I liked her tip, too. Like, if your family likes it, that's a good way to go.
Someone else will like it.
Right. And if your family likes it, probably means you got a stack in the back of the cupboard, and you can replenish that sucker next time you go to Costco. You know what I mean?
Yep.
All right. Stay tuned. We'll have top 3 stories of the day, KSLSports.com. Coming up next, it's Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day.
Let's go.
This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Time for the top 3 stories of the day, KSLSports.com, brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. 2 locations to serve you, one on Winchester Street across from Fashion Place Mall, the other Traverse Mountain in Lehigh. But before we do that, it's time to give away some tickets.
It's a Jazz Ticket Tuesday, and your chance to win Jazz tickets is right now. Be caller number 12 at 801-575-ZONE, and you'll win tickets to see your Utah Jazz at the Delta Center. Presented by UCCU. Love where you bang.
Caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE, 801-575-ZONE. And you're going to be going to see the Utah Jazz take on the Atlanta Hawks on Friday. Quinn Snyder's return, Ben. By the way, Jazz Ticket Tuesday brought to you by Utah Community Credit Union. Learn and earn the app paying your family to learn about money. UCCU, love where you bank. All right, Sarah, where are we starting today?
Number 1, the Jazz host the Celtics tonight.
Yes, they do. Tip-off is coming your way at 7 o'clock. Pre-game coverage here on the station begins at 6. Ben, the Celtics are very good. I have not seen if they're resting any of their guys, which is always something you have to keep an eye out for. But this is going to be a tough game. It's good they're celebrating the 2010s because I think the task on the floor is going to be a tough one.
They did play last night in Portland, so there is a chance they could rest these guys. It's the final game of a 5-game road trip. They lost their first 2 games. And then won back-to-back games. They beat Phoenix, then beat Portland, and wrap it up tonight in Salt Lake City on the second night of a back-to-back.
No Drew Holiday, right? And no Kristaps Porzingis. We know that one, but we're not sure about the others.
So, they still have plenty to beat the Jazz. No Lowry Markin and no Taylor Hendricks tonight for the Jazz. Kenny Lofton's been assigned to the Stars. He just signed with the team yesterday. Otto Porter retires. It's kind of funny. He retired as a Jazz man last night, and he doesn't have social media. So he had the Jazz send out his retirement as opposed to,
makes sense.
The Warriors or the Wizards or whatever. And kind of nice of him. He's like, this is the team I'm on, and I'm not going to play anymore. I'm not healthy enough to play. So I have to retire with this team, and he allowed that to happen.
Hanging it up.
Yeah, pretty cool.
But that had to happen for them to have the roster spots, right? They had to. He had to do something one way or another.
And then they have to waive one more player, actually.
So we'll see what happens there.
We'll see what happens. So, no, well, actually, I guess with Otto Porter retiring.
I thought it was only him. I hadn't seen they had to waive another player.
No, they do, because they signed Tavion Kinsey to the 10-day, and because they're not in a injury hardship, that 10-day does count against their 15 players. So they probably have to get rid of Tavion Kinsey's 10-day contract before they can officially sign Darius Baisley. So, anyways, long story short, Jazz Celtics tonight. Going to be another tough game, but you should see a lot of the young players again, minus Taylor Hendricks.
I wonder if our guy Zanuck will cut that player in the locker room after the game, Utah State style.
Just go in.
Just go in and let it loose.
Or you know what? Just let Tavion play out his 10-day and let him get that $65,000 or whatever it is that he makes, and
yeah, whatever. I just
double
wanted
his
to make
salary.
a Utah State joke, really.
Pretty tough. Pretty tough exit still.
All right. What's next? Sarah.
Sarah's giving away tickets.
All right, Ben, you do it.
Number 2. What is number 2?
Big moves in free agency.
Big moves in free agency. The big one, Kirk Cousins leaves
guy.
the Vikings to sign with the Atlanta Hawks.
And he's going to be terrible because, I don't know.
'Cause he is terrible.
Are the Falcons any good? Did you say the Hawks, the Falcons?
Did I say the Atlanta Hawks?
Yeah.
Same thing. Atlanta Falcons, excuse me.
They have a good running game, right? But that guy is a little bit of a loose cannon.
No, they're fine. They got Bijan Robinson,
Yeah.
kid from Texas.
But yeah, didn't
And
he
they
have
have
some sort of...
Algier as well. So, yeah, they've got a very good running game. That's what they need. They needed a quarterback to come in and steady the ship, and they did not have one last year.
I think it's a good move for Atlanta. I don't know if it's a good move for Kirk Cousins.
Oh, it's a great move for Kirk Cousins. He just took the money. He got $100 million guaranteed. That was a great deal for him.
Well, yeah, that is nice. Yeah, maybe I should rephrase that to I don't know if this is the best step for him to win.
No, but he's not a winner. So take the cash. When you're not a winner, take the cash. He was not going to compete for a Super Bowl wherever he is. He's not good enough. So he did a cash grab, and he got, it's $180 million? 100 guaranteed?
I'm so now rooting for the Falcons to win the Super Bowl just because of your opinion.
I like the Falcons. I like how many local ties they have. I've historically liked the Falcons.
Go Falcons.
And the Hawks. Whatever Atlanta team you want to bring in
How
here.
about Minnesota, who signed Sam Darnold, do a one-year deal? Like, okay. You know what? To our conversation about Al Jefferson and Paul Millsap, it's amazing how many franchises talk themselves into like placeholders. Like, this is just as good, and it'll be there until we find the next thing.
Like we've said, there are 32 open starting quarterback jobs in the world. There are 8 people good enough to do it. And the rest of them are just playing musical chairs. And Kirk Cousins is the best of the musical chairs players.
But here's what the NFL hasn't figured out. Then punt. Punt on everything and be terrible.
Right.
Like, don't sign Sam Darnold. Actually, sign Zach Wilson and tell him he has to play with the opposite hand.
Or hell, you've got a kid named Jaron Hall on your team. Just go with Jaron Hall.
Sacrifice him and lose every game you possibly can. Like, it doesn't make any sense, actually, to try and, like, if Pittsburgh were smart, and I love it about Pittsburgh that they're the franchise that's always good, but they would never have signed Rusty, and they would just punt with tiny hands and be as bad as they can until they replenish the roster with really good players. But Minnesota will sign Sam Darnold. They'll be middle to the bottom of that division next year anyway, but probably good enough not to get the number 1 pick. You know what I mean? Like, the NFL doesn't make sense.
Well, it's a hard biz. And everyone does think they have a chance to win. They don't, but everyone does think they have a chance to go out and do something. Like the Falcons.
I tell you who won't do anything next year, Minnesota. Don't draft Jefferson in your fantasy draft.
I don't be surprised if they trade Justin Jefferson now. I mean, maybe
they really
go
should.
Full,
maybe they punt. They should.
See if you can get a couple of first-round picks for him. He's that good of a player.
So, interesting. The big loser of the day, of course, your Chicago Bears, whose trade market for Justin Fields just evaporated.
Dried up really quickly.
I mean, even Minshew Mania is going to Vegas. Even the Raiders aren't making a move for Justin Fields. So now the Bears are sitting there with no value for an asset or trade the number 1 pick, which is what they don't want to do. You know what they should do is cut Fields, trade the number 1 pick, and draft anyone but fingernails.
Okay.
That's what I'd do.
Also, local ties. Zach Moss gets a deal with Cincinnati, as Joe Mixon is getting traded to the Texans. So opens up a big opportunity for him. And he played well when he was on the field last year with the Colts. So good for him.
Yeah, he's what running backs have turned into in the NFL. Unfortunately, he's just going to bounce around from team to team to team because he's good and good enough, and he's never going to get, what are the kids saying these days, the bag or something?
Yeah.
Never going to, or the people pretending to be young who say that. He's never going to get a huge payday. He's never going to have, guaranteed future. He's going to be signing one-off deals for the rest of his career, but may it last long, and may he play for some good teams along the way.
Go make $20 million.
Seems like so little considering
what guys do make. But yeah, make $20 million in your career and retire happy.
I mean, NBA players are making $20 million in half
the worst
season.
players.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Oh, the first round draft picks who wash out of the league still make about $20 million.
Davis Bertans is making $18 million this year. Nobody knows where he is.
He got traded at the deadline. Charlotte?
Charlotte.
Yeah.
For Gordon Hayward.
Yeah. You got it. Nailed it. All right, Sarah, what is number 3?
Number 3, conference tournaments begin today.
Yeah, we've got some college basketball.
Begins for the bad teams.
Kicking off. Hey, Oklahoma State and UCF are playing right now. Big 12 tournament's already started.
What's our score? Here, I'll bring it up.
3-2.
Oh, so it's early.
Thriller.
Oh, it's now 6-4.
Oh.
We were talking about how Utah plays in the middle of the night coming up tomorrow, which Sarah is really excited about because
she works for the old Pacific Athletic Conference.
The Pac-12 Network going to be broadcasting the game 9:30 tip for Utah and Arizona State. By the way, Jerry Palm came on with Hanson Scotty yesterday and said there is a path for Utah to get to the tournament without winning it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I bet.
There is. I mean, according to the guy who...
Sure. They make the conference championship game and beat Arizona on the way. Absolutely. You know what would have been easier? Beating Oregon State once.
I don't know if that would have got him in, though.
Would have helped, especially when you only lose to Oregon by 1. Then maybe you only need to win 1 game in the conference tournament, as opposed to 3, including Arizona and maybe a Colorado or something.
BYU will play tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Ooh, the Cougs are going to be playing during the show.
Yep.
And they'll play the winner of that Oklahoma State UCF game.
So we will see.
How did the Cougs lose to Oklahoma State? That was a bad loss.
That was a bad loss.
We talked about losing to the Beavs. Losing to the Cowboys was not a good loss.
But they didn't need that win. Utah needed their win.
Apparently not.
See if they get an NIT invite.
Hey, they can win a couple of games, go to the conference tourney, still get an at-large bid, Ben.
Sure.
That still is a possibility.
It is on the schedule. I'm not going to say it's a possibility, but you're right. Those games are scheduled. At least one of them.
And it wouldn't be Arizona. It'd be Washington State. They'd have to be likely Colorado and Washington State back to back.
Lock. Yeah.
But that's not out of the cards. They could be Washington State.
It's 100% out of the cards. They just lost Colorado by 30 on the road.
What's the key in that phrase there?
They're not playing at home.
Hey, their neutral site's not on the road, pal.
It's going to be a short run for the Utes. Good luck.
We'll see.
Hey, I'll watch the Colorado game. Is that who they're playing, Colorado?
That's who they like. Well, let's see. Let me. No, they're not. Hold on. Hold the phone. They're playing Arizona State.
Okay.
And then they'd play Colorado. And
If
then
they
they
beat
play
Arizona
Washington State. Yeah.
Let's hope they beat Arizona
To
State.
get there. Because these other teams have buys.
Yeah. Good luck.
They could beat Colorado and Washington State. That's a thing they could do.
Sure. They could have beat Oregon State. They chose not to.
They chose not to.
They could have beat USC. They chose not to.
They chose not to.
Those teams weren't beat anyone else. Seems like you'd have to make a decision not to beat those teams, and that was the decision they chose. 'Cause no one else could. Everyone else could beat them.
What's the status of Carlson? Have we seen?
I've not seen the update.
I have not seen an update, no.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. By the way, you've offended Colton. He says, Hawks? Ben, I'm offended as a Falcons fan.
Yeah.
You should be.
You're the one.
You should be. Hey, I just told you I'm rooting for the Falcons.
So am I. I like all the local players.
You just can't stand Kirk Cousins.
He's not good.
He's quite good. He just signed a $100 million deal.
Yep. So did Davis Bertans, as we already talked about.
Want to remind you that it's a Jazz Ticket Tuesday brought to you by Utah Community Credit Union. Learn and earn the app paying your family to learn about money. UCCU, love where you bank. More next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's our 50th segment brought to you by Peach Doors and Windows. Peach Doors and Windows, Utah's premier door and window retailer combining beauty and technology. On doors and windows since 1993. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255. Also, I want to remind you about Win Ticket Wednesday, your chance to win big every week here on the station. This week, you can win a pair of tickets to go see the Australian Pink Floyd show at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on August the 16th. Listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day on Wednesday. Ben, our next guest, no doubt, is a huge fan of the Australian Pink Floyd band, or at least I would assume so. We've got a big event coming up, the Feed Utah Food Drive. It's going to be held Saturday, March 16th. And joining us now to talk all about it, she is the president and CEO of the Utah Food Bank. She is Jeanette Bott. Hi, Jeanette. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you.
Jeanette, one of the things we were talking about in the last segment is, you have this great drive, and before Saturday at 9 a.m., if you can leave non-perishable food items on your doorstep, somebody can come around and collect them. But some of our listeners don't maybe have a doorstep. Honestly, a lot of people live in apartments or condos and maybe not have access to it. Can they donate cash, and what's the easiest way to do that?
We've made it really, really easy for people to do just that. And by utilizing the QR code that is on the door hanger that they might receive at their home, they can scan that to donate, or they can visit utahfoodbank.org/feed Utah. That will take them directly to a donation page, and they can do it from the ease of their phone or their computer at home.
And, the task is a big one. Jeanette, just put it in perspective for us. How many Utahns are helped with the food bank?
It's an interesting fact that hunger needs to be such an issue in this day and age. It's really sad, but the numbers are going up. And the Utah Food Bank has been at this for 120 years. So hunger is a constant problem in our area. Right now in the state of Utah, about 13% of our population doesn't know where their next meal is coming from. And sadly, 1 in 10 of those are children. So the problem is there. And it's hard for me to look at you and tell if you're hungry. I can't see it. It has to manifest itself. And usually with kids, that's their behavior in the classroom, other settings for kids that are difficult when they're hungry. We have to make this happen on Saturday so these kids can really get a healthy start and stay healthy and really grow into an adulthood that's a positive one.
If we have listeners that can't put the food out on their doorstep, is there a place they can drop it off?
All of the Macy's stores across the state are participating as drop-off locations. There are also a Lynn store, one located in Cedar City and one in St. George. Both of them will accept that as well. If you have a pantry in your neighborhood that is open on Saturday, you can take it to them. And then all of the Utah Food Bank locations throughout the state are open on Saturday to accept your donation too.
All right, so March 16th, Saturday, March 16th, fill a bag with non-perishable food donations. Leave it on your front step, and it's going to be picked up by 9. Leave it there by 9 a.m. on Saturday, March 16th for a pickup. And I'll tell you, Jeanette, you're going to get a lot of mac and cheese from our family. I mean, we're coming in heavy on the mac and cheese, Jeanette, and we appreciate you, all you do, and thanks for coming on our show.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeanette.
That's Jeanette Bott, president and CEO of the Utah Food Bank. I feel like that last part was clunky, so let me remind you. Saturday, March 16th, need to have that ready to go on your front doorstep by 9 a.m. If, as Ben mentioned, that's, you don't have a front doorstep apartment or whatever, you can go down to Macy's and find a Macy's near you, or cash donations. They want to make it as easy as possible to help.
Again, every $1, they can stretch to more than $8 in food. What you would be able to buy with your $8 in purchasing power, they can do that with $1. So $2, $3, $4, $5 goes a long ways. I mean, that's a full trip to the grocery store for a lot of people for just $5.
Jeremiah Jensen joins the show at 11:30. Stay tuned as Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.